Hello everyone, my name is Joe Burnett. I am a mathematics adjunct faculty member at both the Eastern and Ammerman campus, and I put together a brief presentation of how I incorporate the JEDI principles into my classrooms. First way that I generally try to incorporate these JEDI principles is by incorporating assessment questions that build confidence within the assessment. In older versions of exams, I used to try to have students compute the difference quotient, as an example, where I gave them the formula and asked them to compute the difference quotient and left it as a blank question that they could then answer. Many times students would either leave it blank completely because they weren't sure whether or not they were doing it properly, or they would work on it in a certain fashion, either correctly or incorrectly, not knowing whether or not they did it. A lot of students would actually work on it, be unsure of their answer, and erase their work, and then submit an empty sheet of paper full of eraser marks. And I realized that students that didn't know what they were, or didn't have confidence in their abilities, would underperform because they didn't actually submit the work that they were working on. So a small change that I made was to give them the solution. This is a new version of that same type of question, where I ask students to instead show algebraically that the difference quotient simplifies to the answer. And I give them the formula and I give them the equation similar to what we did in the past. The difference in results from students here was phenomenal. Students would work so diligently, they would erase, they would struggle, they would attempt it 2, 3, 4, 5 times until they got the correct solution. And instead of just doing it once or attempting it once, throwing caution to the wind and handing in the test, they would work on it diligently, as I said before, until they get the correct solution. Both of these still emphasize the same procedure, which is building on the skills within algebra to try and come up with a solution to this type of question. A simple example is to determine algebraically whether a given function is even, odd, or neither. Just a very open-ended question where students need to either get it correct or not. Again, same type of solutions. Students would either hand in lots of eraser marks with no actual solution, or just leave it blank completely because they weren't sure. I've changed this again to show algebraically that the given function is neither even or odd. So I'm giving them the answer, I'm telling them what they need to do, and the amount of work and effort that is put in is drastically improved. Again, trying to build confidence and improve perseverance and effort. Lastly, in a calculus course, when we start talking about the definition of the derivative, you would ask students in previous exams, give them a function, tell them to use the definition of the derivative to come up with g prime of x. Leaving it very open-ended, and either students know it or they do not. I have changed this to instead ask them to use the definition of the derivative to show that the derivative, that g prime, is equal to this. Again, giving them solutions rather than just leaving it open-ended, which ends up leading to much drastically improved results from students, much stronger effort from students, and much more of a confidence booster while they're taking the test to ensure that they're doing the correct work. Another way that I incorporate the JEDI principles into my classrooms is to integrate growth mindset. Many of us have heard of growth mindset, many of us try to do it the best of our abilities, but I wanted to go over 3 brief ways that I actually use the growth mindset in my classes. The first one is to encourage all students to try examples on their own during class. This is very difficult at times because this does eat up class time, it does eat up lecture time, and we're always looking to save more time. However, I find this very beneficial because it's the aspect of teaching freshman to sophomore level mathematics is really confidence building for a lot of students. Not all students, but a lot of students. They're not sure of what they're doing, they're not familiar with what's going on, they're not used to this level of math, and the ability to try a question or two in class and get immediate feedback is very beneficial. The second aspect of the growth mindset that I incorporate in my classes is to have students sharing questions. I ask students to share questions that they or their classmates might have rather than asking students to share the correct answer. Again, this builds on the understanding that students aren't expected to know everything immediately, and that they are expected to struggle, they're expected to be confused and have issues with what's going on, but to learn how to persevere and to learn how to seek assistance when needed. This leads into very good conversations about students talking with their peers about what questions they might have and whether or not they're understanding the concepts. It leads into lots of group conversations and peer conversations among classmates, and it just changes the type of questions that we have in class, which is great. And the third thing that I try to emphasize in all of my classes is to not call on the first person to raise their hand or the first person to volunteer an answer. Doing this, I feel, emphasizes speed over ability. I don't necessarily want to emphasize the fastest student to get to an answer. Instead, I'd rather build up the ability of all students and to have them understand that the process of individual problem solving is time consuming, and it is not expected to be a race to the final answer, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows how to get to a final answer. Anyway, these are a couple of ways that I incorporate the JEDI principles into my classrooms. Again, my name is Joe Burnett, and I thank you for your time today.